Hi, welcome to Frights and Sprites. I've just finished watching the newest instalment in the Evil Dead series, and I'm here to give you my first view review of the film. And to put your mind at ease, it will be spoiler free. If you watch to the end, you'll see my rating for this film, as well as a preview for my next video. Evil Dead Rise is a 2023 American supernatural horror film written and directed by Cronin. You may know him from The Hole in the Ground, an interesting and atmospheric horror mystery from 2019. If you're a fan of short horror films, you may know him from Ghost Train, a haunting short that has won multiple awards. This is the 5th film in the Evil Dead series. I'm currently working on an Evil Dead timeline, and at some point in the future, if it's good enough to publish, you'll find a link in the description below or up in one of the corners. You know the drill. The film stars Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland as two estranged sisters trying to reconnect after being apart for some time. Their reunion is derailed and turned into a fight for survival as their family, friends and neighbours become victims of demonic possession. When it comes to the Evil Dead franchise, I've always felt like a little bit of an outsider. As a young horror fan, I was well aware of the Evil Dead trilogy. Its reputation aside, the posters and cover art for the films was incredibly creepy and effective. So when time came for me to finally see the films, I ended up being a little bit underwhelmed. Now don't start with the pitchforks and flaming torches straight away. I can see why people love the original trilogy. There are parts in those films that are really haunting and get under your skin. But I've always found when I start to get drawn in and scared, something goofy happens and takes me right out of the experience. Now I understand the rank absurdity of complaining about a weird tone and slapstick humour in a Sam Raimi film. It's like complaining about people bursting into song in the middle of a musical, but that's just where I am as an observer. Then along comes Evil Dead 2013 and I get the horror film I never knew I wanted. Fede Alvarez came to do some real damage with this reboot and it doesn't look around. So take the sadistic horror of the original, pull out some of the clowning, push in a load more blood, serve it up in a 90-minute horror film, and for me it's an instant modern classic. In that film there's tons of blood, lots of creative mutilation, and a gruesome conclusion. There are plenty of not so great parts too, but I was squirming around in my seat so often that I didn't really care or notice the shortcomings. If you haven't already seen it, watch this video first, give it a thumbs up and then go and watch Evil Dead 2013. Now, with all that out of the way and the Evil Dead fans attacking me in the comments, let's talk about Evil Dead Rise. Now, as far as I can tell, Evil Dead Rise isn't a direct sequel to Evil Dead 2013, although I assume it does take place in the same universe. That's because the particular Book of the Dead that's used in this film is referred to as the second of 3 cursed books. And based on what happens in this film, I can't wait to see what the third book can actually do. Whereas the last movie was about trauma being visited upon a group of acquaintances while staging an intervention, this story is much more personal and comes with tons of emotional baggage. We have the usual parade of paranormal pestilence you would normally see in one of these films, but this time it's visited on a family. One of the kids comes across a version of the Book of the Dead, forbidden phrases are spoken, and then all hell breaks loose. Everyone in the building is then put through awful torment by the evil, both emotionally and physically. Now in all fairness, there isn't a great deal of story in this from start to finish. What you do get is a load of visceral set pieces and scenes of the demon playing with each member of the family in different psychologically damaging ways. This lack of narrative could be a problem for some audiences, especially those who might want to get to know the characters and their motivations. However, this isn't a thoughtful and considered art house horror movie. This is a bloodbath rollercoaster with thrilling highs and stomach-churning lows. With each passing scene, the filmmakers crank up the gore and action until we get a final confrontation that echoes the conclusion of the last film, albeit with a tremendous body horror twist. The design of the final monster is a sight to behold. I was like giggling and jumping around in my seat with how much I loved this thing. It was horrible. If you've been following the promotional material for the film, you will have seen that the main focus for the demonic possession is the matriarch, Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland. She absolutely nails this character. Her interactions with the family as a mother are delightful and realistic, and the interactions she has as the demon are just hurtful and terrible. For you gorehounds, there is blood. Lots and lots and lots of blood. There isn't quite the same level of constant intense harm you would have seen in the last film, but that's not to say there aren't inventive gore stunts here, because there are, and some of them nearly made me look away. But it isn't the cruel splatterfest that Alvarez served up in Evil Dead 2013. So this is a horror film that comes in around the 90-minute mark. The story is tight, well paced and hits all the beats you would hope for in a film like this. Also, the cinematography is fantastic. Everything looks great, and at no point did any of the technical filmmaking take me out of the scenes I was watching. Excellent work all around. In terms of acting, the whole cast did a great job. Despite there not being a lot of backstory, I felt like I understood the characters and felt for them as they went through all of the torture that the demons threw at them. Connecting with these characters is especially important in a film like this, as we're following the story of a family, so any weak links in this chain would have destroyed the whole dynamic of the family and my engagement in the experience. Sound design was also on point here. Not only did we see lots of gore, but we heard it too. Each visceral tear and squelch made my skin crawl. I'd highly recommend watching this film with either a good sound system or a really good set of headphones. I'm sure you'll have assumed that the makeup and special effects in this movie are also top class. The body horror is plentiful, the skin tearing is visceral, and the blood. Oh good lord, the blood. This movie made my inner demon very happy. So as I said earlier, there is mention of the Necronomicon in this film being the second of 3 cursed tomes. Personally, I don't care what happens in the next film as long as it doesn't take 10 years to arrive. I give this movie 7 I'll swallow your souls out of 10. I don't know about you, but I'll never look at a cheese grater in the same way again. Thanks for watching the review. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and let me know down in the comments whether you prefer the new Evil Dead or the classic Evil Dead. Also, check the recommendations for more dark content from Frights and Sprites and watch to the end to see a preview for my next video. Thanks and stay spooky. The Loved Ones is a brutal Australian horror movie released in 2009. The film was written and directed by Sean Byrne and stars Robin McLeavy as Lola, a twisted teenager whose actions are inspired by the absolute worst of Western serial killers. This disturbing and intense movie explores guilt, emotional trauma, and the darker side of human nature. Not forgetting, it also demonstrates how commonplace power tools can be used to create your very own zombie horde.